Today looks like an absolutely beautiful day to tell you guys about one of the projects we completed before the snow hit the ground. Let's go, let's go.
Ah! So much work to do. What are we working on today?
Driveway. I think it's time to tell them about the driveway.
Too soon, too soon.
I know, right?
So we're gonna kind of tell them the story and what we learned?
Yep.
All right, hope they're ready for that.
Are you dressed?
Well, I'm dressed enough for video.
Yeah, all right. Where are you going?
To the bottom of the driveway.
It's like right over there.
No. This is important, you'll see. Like I need the car to explain what I'm gonna explain.
Skeptical. Lazy has hit an entirely new level.
Oh, it's a long drive.
You're probably asking, what the heck does your driveway have to do with an address? Oh boy, do we have a lot to share.
Oh yeah.
So I guess before we dive into this driveway project and how we got an address and things we learned and all that good stuff, I know some of you are probably asking, why do you even need an address? When we buy a house, it's not really an option, but like, let's talk about that briefly. Why do you need an address?
Really quick, because some of you might be thinking, going off grid, that means disappearing off the face of the earth. Screw the government, right? This video is not for you folks, sorry. This is more practical, down to earth. We still live amongst society. There are certain things that we do want to contribute to society. So while we might live in an area where there's fewer building codes, that doesn't mean that you can do whatever you want. It's your world.
It's not completely lawless.
You get to do whatever you want. It's
well,
freedom. Freedom!
Okay, what are the practical reasons for needing an address? One, we decided that we wanted to get our address sooner rather than later because in the event that we couldn't get an address, I don't know that we'd want to build on this property. That leads us to the next point, resale value. We want to develop this property in a way that pretty much anyone would want to buy it. We feel like that'll give us the greatest amount of options. Therefore, most people are going to want a physical address. Point 3, 911 service. It really helps to have an address if you need to call 911 to your house. You need a physical address to get things like driver's licenses, and it's not a great long-term solution to use, say, your neighbor's address. And then also, a lot of people do choose to have mail and UPS deliver things to their house. So the reasons for an actual official street number are endless.
So we were those people who bought bare land, which by the way does not usually come with an address because you don't need a number for your hayfield or your tree farm because it's not a residence. These are residential addresses. That's why they assign them with a building permit. You don't get mail at your tree farm, if you know what I mean. So we were those people who bought a piece of land. There's a driveway here. The neighbors said this driveway had been here for 25 years and we're like, what could go wrong? We're good. Like clearly it's been here. There's not been any deaths or fatalities. We're good. So we're like, oh, we'll just go get an address. It'll be no biggie deal. So what does it take to get an address? Well, for most people, you actually don't go get an address. You get a building permit because they're a residential address. And usually the building department, whoever that is, they contact the road department or road and bridge or county or whatever it is, and they come out and take a look at the property and help you decide where to put the driveway, and if there is a driveway, what to do with it. For most people, you're not going to have to bother with it. That said, that does not mean that you don't have to jump through some hoops to get your driveway. That just means that you don't have to go physically to get an address. It's part of the whole planning and zoning process. We happen to be in an area where we don't have building permits. We actually have what's called a placement permit, which is more just to protect setbacks on the properties. We're not ready to build, but we are living here already, and we need to get an address so that we can take care of other necessary matters. So we did go to the county. And when you do that, they're going to come out and assess what you've already got if there's an existing driveway, or if you don't have one, they're going to figure out where you're going to put it. So what are they going to expect from you when they come out to decide how to get your driveway? Which, by the way, they're not going to give you an address until your driveway is compliant. Really, really critical. There's a few things they're going to ask you for. One, they want to make sure that you can approach the right-of-way or the highway at a 90-degree angle, so you can see clearly both directions. That's just good safety measures. Next, they want to make sure that you can see a reasonable distance in both directions. That's going to be partially dictated based on the speed of the road where you're entering. So if it's a highway at say 55 miles per hour, the line of sight distance could be pretty considerable. Here where we are, they want at least 100 feet in both directions. It's not very ideal. Next, assuming you have a sloped property like we do, they want to make sure that you have a flat spot at the bottom of the driveway, so that if you're in alpine conditions like we are, if the driveway were slippery, you wouldn't slide into the road. You'd have a small spot here where you can stop to look for traffic. They don't want you approaching directly onto the road. Another reason they want you to have a large flat spot down at the bottom of your driveway is to help reduce the amount of runoff that ends up into the road, which just creates more work for the Public Works Department.
Next point, Jesse's done with this video because his back's spasming, so I'm gonna take over.
Take it away!
If you want to watch a video on how we're attempting to stay healthy on the homestead, click the link above Jesse's head. You'll learn a little bit more about this back spasm history. I'm just shitting your face looking grumpy.
I am grumpy. My back hurts. On with the video.
Meanwhile, this one's in the background of our videos, commandeering the car. Hey. So, why is all this important? Well, as it pertains to our property, if we had the perfect driveway, our property would simply become unusable. We weren't really sure just how much the county was willing to work with us, which made us a little bit worried. It was actually originally suggested that we put the driveway on the back side of the property, where, in all honesty, that's where it was intended that ingress and egress would be. However, we really didn't want to build on the back side of the property, nor did we want to snake a driveway from the back side to the front side, so that wasn't ideal. So while we understand all the criteria for a good driveway, we felt that it was a little bit overkill for our property. So we told the county, we're willing to work with you. We really do want a driveway that is safe for not only us, but the community. What can we do here? So we came to agreement with the county, and they said they were willing to give us some numbers if we made a few small changes to our existing driveway. The first was to create a 20-foot flat spot at the base of the driveway, which would give us a little bit of time to slow down coming off the steep hill. And also, in theory, we'd be able to turn the car around a little bit so that we could enter the road at 90 degrees if we so choose. The other thing we did was make the end of the driveway a little less steep of an angle. Since we couldn't decrease the entire slope of the driveway, that would make the output of our driveway be far too up on the property. We thought that at least we could make some sacrifice on the bottom and do a little work on that. We also agreed to put in some sort of retaining wall, and we decided to go with ecology blocks back here to keep the hillside pushed back. The problem with these is that while we ordered the right amount of quantity, we were told the wrong dimensions. I think these are 2 by 2 by 6, and we were told they were 3 by 3 by 6, so actually we came up a little bit short. Luckily, throughout all this, we had additional projects to do with our backhoe, such as building stairs up to our hot tub deck. We also dug some holes for posts for the garden fence. However, this driveway project alone probably ended up costing us about $1,500 to $2,000. And what did we gain? We're not really sure because we're using the driveway just as we did before. However, we do have digits now. I think all that said, there's a lot of lessons that can be taken away here, and we'll just say this, we think our second house that we build, if we ever get there, will go a lot more smoothly. When you buy a property, there's a long list of criteria and things that you need to think about. We chose to buy land in an area that didn't have building codes and didn't have a lot of other regulations, but that doesn't mean that there are no regulations. In all honesty, as we mentioned earlier, getting a street address was something that kind of just skipped our minds. So it could have been a lot worse, but we're really fortunate that with a little bit of work, we were able to have a driveway that made both us and the county happy. I'd say this project is something that blindsided us a little bit, but it's okay. This is all part of the journey. Some things are expected, some things are unexpected, and all you gotta do is roll with the punches.
All right, I'm coming to you from the hospital. No, I'm just kidding. Jesse's back in action though. Hey, wrapping this video up, just wanted to say a few things. One, just because your property that you're looking at has a driveway, an existing one, does not mean you're going to be allowed to use it. Also, if you have a driveway and you think, gosh, wouldn't it be more convenient if we put the driveway down here or down there? Don't expect, if there's already an address, to be able to move that driveway. It's highly unlikely that they're going to allow you to move it anywhere. And as you can tell from our experience, we highly recommend that you contact your county or road department Before you buy a piece of property, have them come out and visually look at a piece of property to see what is needed to make that driveway compliant and what you'll need to do in order to get an address. It sort of goes without saying, but we wanted to make sure that we could get an address before we started building our house. Wouldn't that be insane if we built our house first and found out later we couldn't get an address? That would be crazy. If you built the house first, then got an address, and they required you to modify the driveway heavily, that could drastically change the layout of your property and may have even changed where you put the house. This is one of those stories we're probably going to tell our kids, and I'm pretty sure our neighbors are going to get really tired of us telling this story. Maybe we're just lucky. We're dealing with a lot of bureaucracy that nobody else seems to know about. Anyway, on to the next project. Hiya!